Hello everyone, it's your boy RM, and today is a good day actually, so perfect timing actually. As I got back from being in the middle of nowhere, this new episode of Helluva appeared, and you know what? I didn't expect the show to turn around so quickly with an episode, but here it is. And let me just say, I think overall, this was actually a good episode. It kind of felt more simplistic, it seemed like, at least off of the gate, for having a very simplistic, A plot and then a very small B plot, which then converged together at the end, which I think was kind of nice. However, looking at it, I got a lot of feelings of this kind of reminded me of episode 1 in season 1, Murder Family, where basically, they have a client, they were told what happened to them, and then they've gone to solve the case and basically go kill the person that did them wrong. Now, I think it was kind of interesting seeing that, seeing High and P continue to do business, which I think is good. I think it's good to show that still in the show and not completely leave the whole premise of that behind, because at the core of the show, they are still running a business and they still need cash flow. So this at least explains how they're still able to get cash and money, to actually continue to fund a lot of the things that they do. Now, I think that's a good, very good start to it, as always. And I also thought that was kind of interesting too, that the client didn't actually know who killed them. I thought that was a nice little take as, something different rather than seeing the Ohioan, from the pilot episode being like, yeah, the yappy jogger, just killed me and all. I wish I want her dead. So, that was kind of nice. However, I did wish they kind of went more in depth with that concept, had to do more investigation, rather than Millie just being really awesome and just figured out who it was from the get-go, of like, hey, look at that person with a bunch of money, and also that drill, that looks like that could be useful too, and they're coming out of that boat shed too, so they really seem like they're really suspicious. We should just go murder them, and then Moxie's like, nope, we're gonna do it my way, and then continued that route. I kind of wish they did more into the hands of they had to do more investigation just to really show the intelligence of the characters. Like as a showcase, I would think would be kind of cool. However, how they did it, episode wise, I still think was not bad. I think it was still a good way to do it. It involved, Millie actually doing really good in her disguise to the point where she got really popular. And I think that is kind of a nice contrast, at least, because it seems like to me it appears to be very meta in this case, because Millie has always been in the background, and for her to actually be in the foreground now and be the main, person, the one everyone's looking at, is actually a change, and I think it's kind of a meta commentary about kind of how we perceived her, as she was always in the background, but now she's in the forefront with this episode, and she's getting a lot of attention compared to Moxie, who's at this point, his disguise, he's not doing good. He hasn't made any progress. He seems like he's not doing great at this moment. And, of course, I think that's very, very good on showing that. And, of course, he does get upset, which reasonable. I would be pissed off if I was trying to do an investigation and I could not find a single thing of evidence, still failing. So I do understand that, and I think it's actually kind of interesting. I think it was kind of nice to see Millie in the forefront and seeing more about who she was as a person, and I think that's kind of the important part about this episode. We got to see more about Millie. We got to know more about who she is and what she desires, even if it's ever so minute. Because it seems like, yeah, we understand she's very athletic. Okay, we understand that from her, ability to do, combat and everything. But I think it's kind of cool, using Millard, or her persona Millard, as a example to show how, she really just wants to have some attention and is enjoying it, because who doesn't enjoy a little bit of attention here, now, and there? So I think it's very cool to see that. It's very cool to see how really supportive she is too as a wife. And also another thing too, this is editor here, I want to note as well is also how freaking smart Millie is. We realize that she's able to solve an entire case based off of fundamentally a little bit of information from the client, and then is able to completely figure out who it is just by being very vigilant and putting two and two together. Do basic solving skills, which is kind of interesting to see from her compared to Moxie, who I think is overthinking it. So it kind of shows a contrast between those characters and how they fully function as a whole together. Where we have one side who's, over analyzing everything, and then the other side is kind of thinking everything at face value, not overthinking, but not underthinking at the same time, which I think is a very specific and important interaction to note. And then the other thing, too, I want to talk about, too, is involving Blitz. Now, he was very interesting. Basically, seeing how Blitz is extremely in character this episode, with him basically interested in one person in particular, his sister Barbie. So basically, he stalks her, and that seems very on par with Blitz. Seeing that he doesn't care, he plans on using violence to get his way, and we've seen that throughout the show. I keep thinking about the pilot episode where he's literally stalking Moxie and Millie. It's like, what you doing? And staring at them. And seeing him do that seems very on character with him and his reaction. Now, do I know why Blitz wants to beat up with Barbie Wire again? Well, no. The only thing I can think of is because he's very insecure and there's not many people he trusts exactly. Maybe, I'm assuming because, at least according to, I think it was a poster, if editor, you want to put a picture of that in, I think it was Murder Family, there was a picture of him and it showed Barbie Wire. They were like a duet or some sort, like within a circus. And I think it was because they used to do a circus performance together, because he was a part of the circus after all we know, working for his dad. I'm wondering if that has to do anything with him wanting to find Barbie Wire, and if so, I'm not exactly sure how the relationship was. All I know is it looks like Blitz is not in good standings with her, similar to how him and Verosika are, where the party is not extremely happy with his actions. Now, unlike that, we notice that, Barbie Wire does not want anything of him. Meanwhile, Blitz wants something of her, mainly the talk, and I'm not sure if that's because he wants to apologize for something he did in the past or anything. But I think that's a very interesting way on how they put it. I think the introduction to Barbie Wire was actually very good, showing how, she's out of rehab, but she's still dealing drugs and trying to make money. And so I think it's very interesting to kind of show, and I think this kind of maybe shows a bit about who she might truly be. Besides being an addict, it might show that she seems like she's very hellbent on being, doing this specific route of just doing drugs and dealing the drugs, it looks like, and just making money, basically, doing what she wants. So I think it's very interesting to see how she carries out through the episode, and how she actually works with a human. I think that's very interesting. Now, I would be very interested to see him, Blitz's, and Barbie's relationship, and mainly the past, too. I'd be very curious to see how the past went, which I'm pretty sure we might see more of that in the future, and seeing how it kind of boils over as, Blitz wants to rekindle his relationship with his sister, but we'll figure that out later. I do think that it's very interesting how Moxie's behavior feels different compared to the other episodes. He feels very specific, and he feels very hellbent on doing the specific task in his own way. Now, I'm going to have to assume this because at one point, he wanted to be an actor and a musician, but failed at doing such a thing. Now, I think the important part to this is that it shows that he wants attention and validation, kind of like how Blitz does. However, in this, he doesn't seem like he gives as much to Millie as we see. Sure, at the end, he does make up after their argument and dispute by, doing a typical, like, oh, I love you, you're such a badass, you're so strong. It's like, yeah, it's there, and there's some form of it, but it's not as much as Millie gives to Moxie, as we can see, where she's literally the entire episode was like, hey, play to your strengths, babe, do this, do that, it's just the point, as we can see, where Millie puts in a lot more than Moxie, I think, which might be the issue with the relationship, and overall is going to be the boiling point of it, which we're going to see later on in future episodes, which is something I look forward to seeing if this interaction does continue to go on, because I think this is something that needs to be addressed, and it does also show, too, how relationships aren't perfect And there are going to be some trident and turbulations and kerfuffles that kind of put pins and stuff like that in the way. Now, overall, I think this episode is extremely good, as I believe it is very important because it kind of helps us get off of that low point of, season 4, episode 4, Western Energy, where, we kind of feel a little iffy, and now we're kind of back up into feeling good. We have an episode that really helps us bring more, learning more about a character. In this case, it's Millie, one we desperately needed, and I think, overall, very important episode. I think it's very vital to understanding the characters' interactions, and as a whole, I think this is a very efficient episode, and it does a wonderful job as always. Not too much to complain about. Now, guys, as always, I would like to ask you if you could like and subscribe if you've watched it this far, you guys are awesome, and I'd like to see more of you, so comment down below too. I'd like to hear what you think about this episode. And maybe if you disagree with anything I say, or do you simply agree with what I have to say, or have something different. Now, guys, as always, have a wonderful day.